The wife of a rich man fell ill one day. When she realized that the end was near, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Dear child, if you are good and say your prayers faithfully, our dear Lord will always help you, and I shall look down from heaven and always be with you." Then she closed her eyes and passed away. Every day the little girl went to her mother's grave and wept. She was always good and said her prayers. When winter came, snow covered the grave with a white blanket. And when the sun took it off again in the spring, the rich man remarried. 5 months later, the man's new wife brought with her 2 daughters with beautiful faces and fair skin, but with hearts that were foul and black. This marked the beginning of a hard time for the poor stepchild. "Why should this silly goose be allowed to sit in the parlor with us?" the girls asked. "If you want to eat bread, you'll have to earn it. Get back in the kitchen where you belong." The sisters took away the girl's beautiful clothes, dressed her in an old gray smock, and gave her some wooden shoes. "Just look at the proud princess in her finery," they shouted and laughed, taking her out to the kitchen. From morning until night, she had to work hard. Every day she got up before daybreak to carry water, get the fire going, cook, and wash. On top of that, the 2 sisters did everything imaginable to make her life miserable. They made fun of her and threw peas and lentils into the ashes so that she would have to bend down over the ashes and pick them out. In the evening, when she was completely exhausted from work, she didn't even have a bed to lie down in, but had to sleep at the hearth in the ashes. She began looking so dusty and dirty that everyone called her Cinderella. One day, when the father was going to the fair, he asked the 2 stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Beautiful dresses," one of them said. "Pearls and jewels," said the other. "But you, Cinderella," he asked, "what do you want?" "Like he cares. They've been treating him bad." "Oh, awful father." "Father," she said, "break off the first branch that brushes against your hat on the way home and bring it to me." And so he bought beautiful dresses, pearls, and jewels for the 2 stepsisters. On the way home, while he was riding through a thicket of green bushes, a hazel branch brushed against him and knocked his hat off. When he arrived home, he gave his stepdaughters what they had asked for, and to Cinderella he gave the branch from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave, and planted the hazel sprig on it. She wept so hard that her tears fell to the ground and watered it. It grew to become a beautiful tree. How long Cinderella's been doing this for a twig to become a tree? 3 times a day Cinderella went and sat under it and wept and prayed. Each time a little white bird would also fly to the tree, and whenever she made a wish, the little bird would toss down what she had wished for. It happened one day that the king announced a festival that was to last 3 days. All the beautiful young ladies in the land were invited so that his son could choose a bride. When the 2 stepsisters discovered that they had been invited, they were in high spirits. They called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles. We're going to the wedding at the king's palace." Cinderella did as she was told, but she felt sad, for she too would have liked to go to the ball, and she begged her stepmother to let her go. "Cinderella," the stepmother said, "how can you possibly go to a wedding when you're constantly covered with dust and dirt? How can you plan to go to a ball when you have neither a dress nor shoes?" Cinderella kept pleading with her stepmother, and she finally relented. "Here, I've dumped a bowl of lentils into the ashes. If you can pick out all the lentils in the next 2 hours, then you may go." Cinderella went into the garden through the back door and called out, "Oh, tame little doves, little turtle doves, and all you little birds in the sky, come and help me put the good ones into the little pot and the bad ones into your little crop." Two little white doves came flying in through the kitchen window, followed by little turtle doves. And finally all the birds in the sky came swooping and fluttering and settled down in the ashes. The little doves nodded their heads and began to peck, 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 peck. And then the others began to peck, 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 and put all the good lentils into the bowl. Barely an hour had passed when they were done and flew back out the window. Cinderella brought the bowl to her stepmother and was overjoyed because she was sure she would now be allowed to go to the wedding. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have nothing to wear and you don't know how to dance. Everyone would just laugh at you." When Cinderella began to cry, the stepmother said, "If you can pick out 2 bowls of lentils from the ashes in the next hour, then you can go." But she thought to herself, she'll never be able to do it. After the stepmother had dumped the 2 bowls of lentils into the ashes, the girl went into the garden through the back door and called out, "Oh, tame little doves, little turtle doves, and all you little birds in the sky, come and help me put the good ones into the little pot and the bad ones into your little crop." 2 little white doves came flying in through the kitchen window, followed by little turtle doves. And finally all the birds in the sky came swooping and fluttering and settled down in the ashes. The little doves nodded their heads and began to peck, 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 peck. And the others began to peck, 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 and put all the good lentils into the bowl. Barely a half hour had passed when they were finished and flew back out the window. The girl brought the bowls back to her stepmother and was overjoyed because she was sure that she would now be able to go to the wedding. But her stepmother said, "It's no use. You can't come along because you don't have anything to wear and you don't know how to dance. You would just embarrass us." Turning her back on Cinderella, she hurried off with her 2 proud daughters. Now that no one was left at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave under the tree and cried, "Shake your branches, little tree, toss gold and silver down on me." The bird threw down to her a dress of gold and silver, along with slippers embroidered with silk and silver. Cinderella quickly slipped on the dress and left for the wedding. Her sisters and her stepmother had no idea who she was. She looked so beautiful in the dress of gold that they thought she must be the daughter of some foreign king. It never occurred to them that it could be Cinderella, for they were sure that she was still at home, sitting in the dirt and picking lentils out of the ashes. The prince approached Cinderella, took her by the hand, and danced with her. He didn't intend to dance with anyone else there, and never even let go of her hand. Whenever anyone asked her to dance, he would just say, "She's my partner." Cinderella danced well into the night, and then she wanted to go home. The prince said, "I will go with you as your escort," for he was hoping to find out something about the family of this beautiful young woman. But Cinderella managed to slip away from him, and she bounded into a dovecote. The prince waited until Cinderella's father arrived and told him that the strange girl had disappeared into the dovecote. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? He sent for an axe and pick and broke into the dovecote. But no one was inside it. And when they returned home, there was Cinderella lying in the ashes in her filthy clothes, with a dim little oil lamp burning on the mantel. Cinderella had jumped down from the back of the dovecote and had run over to the little hazel tree, where she slipped out of her beautiful dress and then put it on the grave. The bird took the dress back, and Cinderella put on her gray smock and settled back into the ashes in the kitchen. The next day, when the festivities started up again, and the parents had left with the stepsisters, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shake your branches, little tree. Toss gold and silver down on me." The bird tossed down a dress that was even more splendid than the previous one, And when she appeared at the wedding in this dress, everyone was dazzled by her beauty. The prince, who had been waiting for her to arrive, took her by the hand and danced with her alone. Whenever anyone came and asked her to dance, he would say, "She is my partner." As night fell, Cinderella wanted to leave, and the prince decided to follow her, hoping to see which house she would enter. But she bounded away and disappeared into the garden behind the house, where there was a beautiful, tall tree with magnificent pears hanging from its branches. Cinderella climbed up through the branches as nimbly as a squirrel in a ball gown. And the prince had no idea where she was, 'cause a girl in a ball gown up in a tree is hard to see. I guess it was dark. He waited until her father got there and said to him, "The strange girl escaped, but I believe that she climbed up into the pear tree." The father wondered, could it be Cinderella? And he sent for an axe and chopped down the tree. Neither of these dudes are smart. But no one was in it. When he went to the kitchen with the prince, Cinderella was as usual lying in the ashes, for she had jumped down the other side of the tree, taken her beautiful dress to the bird on the hazel tree, and slipped on her little gray smock again. On the third day, when the parents and sisters had left, Cinderella went to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Shake your branches, little tree, toss gold and silver down on me." The bird tossed down a dress that was more splendid and radiant than anything she had ever seen, and the slippers were covered in gold. When she got to the wedding in that dress, everyone who saw her was speechless with amazement. The prince danced with her alone, and if someone asked her to dance, he would say, "She is my partner." When night fell, Cinderella was planning to return home, and the prince wanted to escort her, but she slipped away so quickly that he was unable to follow her. The prince had planned a trick, though. The entire staircase had been coated with pitch, and when Cinderella started running down the stairs, her left slipper got stuck in the tar. The prince lifted it up. It was a dainty little shoe covered with gold. The next morning, the prince went with the shoe to his father and said to him, "Only the woman whose foot fits this golden shoe will be my bride." The two sisters were overjoyed to hear the news, for they both had beautiful feet. The elder went with her mother into a special room to try it on, but the shoe was too small for her, and she couldn't get her big toe into it. Her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut your toe off. Once you're queen, you won't need to go on foot anymore." The girl sliced off her toe, forced her foot into the shoe, gritted her teeth, and went out to meet the prince. He lifted her up on his horse as his bride. God, he's not smart. And rode away with her. I don't know why Cinderella wants him. He's stupid. But they had to pass by the mother's grave, and the two little doves were perched on the hazel tree, calling out, "Roo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo, blood is dripping from the shoe. The foot's too long and far too wide. Go back and find the proper bride." When the prince looked down at the girl's foot, he saw that blood was spurting from the shoe, and he turned his horse around. He brought the false bride back home. and said that since she was not the true bride, her sister should try the shoe on. The sister went into her room and succeeded in getting her toes into the shoe, but her heel was way too big. Y'all know where this is going. Her mother handed her a knife too and said, "Cut off part of your heel. Once you're queen, you won't need to go on foot anymore." The girl sliced off a piece of her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, gritted her teeth, and went out to meet the prince. He lifted her up on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. When they passed by the little hazel tree, 2 little doves were perched on a branch, calling out, "Roo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo, blood is dripping from the shoe, the foot's too long and far too wide, go back and find the proper bride." When he looked down on her foot, he saw blood spurting from it and staining her white stockings completely red. Then he turned his horse around and brought the false bride back home. "She's not the true bride either," he said. "Don't you have another daughter?" "No," said the man. "There's no one left but puny little Cinderella, the daughter of my first wife." "But she can't possibly become your bride." "Thanks, Dad." The prince asked that she be sent for, but the mother said, "Oh no, she's much too dirty to show her face." The prince insisted, and Cinderella was summoned. First, she washed her hands and face until they were completely clean. Then she went and curtsied before the prince, who handed her the golden shoe. I sure hope they cleaned it first. She sat down on a stool, took her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper. It fit perfectly. And when she stood up, and the prince looked her straight in the face, he recognized the beautiful girl with whom he had danced, and he shouted, "She is the true bride!" The stepmother and her 2 daughters were horrified, and they turned pale with rage. But the prince lifted Cinderella up on his horse and rode away with her. When they passed by the little hazel tree, the 2 little white doves called out, "Roo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo, no blood at all in that shoe. The foot's not long and not too wide. The true bride's riding at his side." After they chanted these words, the doves both came flying over and perched on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right, the other on the left. And there they stayed. On the day of the wedding to the prince, the 2 false sisters came and tried to curry favor with Cinderella and share in her good fortune. When the bridal couple entered the church, the elder sister was on the right, the younger on the left. The doves pecked one eye from each sister. Later, when they left the church, the elder sister was on the left and the younger on the right. The doves pecked the other eye from each sister. And so they were punished for their wickedness and malice, with blindness for the rest of their lives. The end.